What if I told you something extraordinary is quietly unfolding in your life right now? No, this isn't a drill. It's not a glitch in the matrix or Mercury in retrograde. This is real. There's a powerful shift brewing beneath the surface, one that could rewrite everything you thought you knew about yourself and your path ahead. Here's the thing most people miss. They ignore the signs. But you're here. And I have a feeling you already sense something's coming, something big. Life-altering. The kind of change Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius whispered about when they said, "The impediment to action advances action." And today, we're diving into the 8 undeniable signs that your life is about to change forever. So make yourself comfortable, pour a coffee or something stronger, if it's been that kind of day. And while you're at it, hit that like button and subscribe. Because once you spot these signs, there's no going back. 1. You feel a deep sense of restlessness. Have you ever woken up one morning and felt like your life no longer fits you? As if you're wearing a jacket that used to keep you warm but now it's 2 sizes too small and you can't breathe. You look around, and suddenly everything feels off. The job you once fought for, sacrificed weekends for, feels empty now. You sit at your desk, staring at the screen, and wonder, why am I still doing this? The friendships that once gave you comfort feel distant. Conversations that used to flow easily now seem forced. Like you're pretending to care about things you no longer believe in. Even your daily routine, something that once anchored you, feels like walking in circles in a room without windows. If you've felt this, you're not alone. And no, you're not broken. What you're experiencing is what I call a quiet rebellion of the soul. I remember the first time it happened to me. I was sitting in my car, in the parking lot of the company I'd worked at for over a decade. I couldn't bring myself to walk through those glass doors. Not because I was lazy or ungrateful. I was exhausted in a different way, a deeper exhaustion. Like my spirit knew this wasn't where I was supposed to be anymore. But at the time, I didn't have the language for it. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I was just tired. Maybe I needed a vacation. But weeks went by, and that hollow feeling didn't leave. It grew louder. What I didn't understand then, but I do now, is that this feeling isn't random. It's not just burnout or boredom. It's your deeper self telling you you've outgrown this life. And if you ignore it, it doesn't go away. It escalates. You start to lose things. Opportunities slip away. Relationships dissolve. Circumstances force your hand. It's like life itself conspires to push you out of the space you no longer belong in. Stoic philosophy calls this the natural flow of life, the logos. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That discomfort, that restless frustration, it's a signal that you're standing at a threshold. Your old life can't hold your potential anymore. And the Stoics teach us to move with the current, not resist it. To see the discomfort not as suffering, but as guidance. When you stop fighting it and start listening, clarity comes. You realize you're not losing your life. You're shedding the version of it that was too small for who you're becoming. So if you're sitting in that space right now, feeling trapped and restless, don't run from it. Sit with it. Ask yourself, what part of me is ready to grow? Stoicism isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about facing reality as it is and using that truth to shape a better life. This feeling isn't here to break you, it's here to lead you forward. 2. You're losing people rapidly. Have you ever noticed how right before something big shifts in your life, people start disappearing? It's strange, isn't it? One moment, you're surrounded by friends you've laughed with, leaned on, trusted without question, and the next, they're slipping away. Some vanish quietly, no goodbye, no warning, just silence where there was once connection. Others stay. But something changes. Conversations feel heavy. Messages go unanswered. And you can't help but wonder, what did I do wrong? I've asked myself that same question more times than I care to admit. There was a season in my life where everything familiar seemed to dissolve at once. Friends I'd known for years drifted away. Invitations stopped. The phone that used to buzz with texts was suddenly still. And I replayed it all in my head, conversations, moments, anything I could have said or done differently. I took it personally, because like most of us, I believed their absence was somehow my fault. But it wasn't, and if you're going through this, it's not your fault either. This isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's not abandonment, it's alignment. You see, when you're on the verge of becoming someone new, when your life is preparing to stretch beyond its old limits, the universe starts to clear the path. People who can't go with you to that next level, they begin to fall away. Some don't understand your growth. Others feel uncomfortable with the fact that you're no longer the person they knew. Because deep down they fear being left behind. And here's the hard truth. Some people will leave not because you've changed, but because you didn't stay small. The version of you they were comfortable with is fading, and they're not ready to meet the new one. Stoic philosophy reminds us of this. Everything is impermanent. Epictetus said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." This loss, it's part of the process. You're not being punished, you're being refined. I know it feels lonely. You might be tempted to hold on, to chase after those who've walked away, or to beg for clarity that never comes. But holding on to people who are meant to exit your life is like carrying unnecessary weight up a steep mountain. It only slows you down, makes the climb harder, and keeps you from reaching the view you're meant to see. The people who are meant for your next chapter will not need convincing. They will not feel threatened by your growth. They will evolve with you, challenge you, and cheer you on. And those who can't, let them go. Not out of bitterness, but out of trust. Trust that life is unfolding as it should. Trust that the right people will be standing beside you when you step into what's next. And if no one has told you yet, it's okay to outgrow relationships. It's okay to move on without resentment. What's not okay is shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You're not here to stay the same. You're here to grow. So if people are leaving, let them, because where you're headed, you'll need room for the ones who are ready to go with you. 3. Strange synchronicities keep happening. Have you ever felt like life is trying to get your attention in ways you can't quite explain? You're driving down the highway, lost in thought, and you glance at a billboard. There it is, a word that's been on your mind for days. Later that night, you open a book you hadn't touched in years, and the first sentence practically mirrors your own situation. Or maybe you're standing in line at the coffee shop, and the two people in front of you start talking about something you've been silently struggling with. It's subtle at first, easy to write off as coincidence. But then it happens again and again, and you start to wonder if something bigger is at play. I used to think I was imagining things, that maybe I was just reading too much into it. But the more I paid attention, the clearer it became. These weren't random moments, they were synchronicities. Those strange, almost eerie alignments of events that seem to whisper, "Pay attention." And if you've ever felt this way, you're not crazy, you're awake. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the universe is always moving according to its own logic. What they called the logos. And while we can't control it, we can learn to observe it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." Synchronicity is often the universe's way of showing you that change is already happening, whether you're ready or not. But here's where most of us stumble. We notice the signs. We feel the pull, And then we freeze. We convince ourselves that it's safer to stay where we are, to dismiss those subtle nudges as tricks of the mind. And so the moments pass. The door cracks open, but we never step through. I've been there, afraid to make a move, thinking maybe it was all just coincidence. But the truth is, life doesn't waste time on empty signals. These moments are an invitation to act. They are not a guarantee of ease or certainty, but a call to embrace uncertainty and trust the process. Stoicism reminds us that our job isn't to control the external signs but to master how we respond to them. So if life is sending you signs, whether it's a sudden encounter, a word that keeps appearing, or a door that keeps knocking, don't ignore them. Ask yourself, what part of me is being called to change? Because the universe isn't trying to confuse you, it's trying to align you. The question is, are you willing to listen? 4. Unexpected opportunities appear. Imagine this. You're moving through your usual day. Nothing special on the horizon. You wake up, grab your coffee, answer some emails, maybe scroll through the news. It's all familiar. But then, out of nowhere, something happens. An old colleague you haven't spoken to in years suddenly reaches out, saying there's a project they think you'd be perfect for. You weren't looking for anything new. You weren't even thinking about change. But here it is, staring you in the face. And for a moment, you freeze. Part of you feels like it's too random to be real. Like maybe this opportunity isn't meant for you. So you hesitate. You tell yourself you need time to think, to get your life in order, to be ready. I've been there. I once got a call from a former client who was starting a new venture and wanted me to come on board. At the time, I was stuck in a routine I didn't love, but it was familiar and safe. I almost said no, not because I didn't want it, but because I was afraid. Afraid I wasn't prepared, afraid to take the risk. But here's what I've learned. Life rarely sends you what you're ready for. It sends you what you need to grow. And if you wait until you feel ready, you'll spend your life waiting. Stoic philosophy has a beautiful way of framing this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The hesitation, the doubt, the fear, that's the doorway. That uncomfortable feeling is the exact sign that you're standing on the edge of something that could change everything. Most people talk themselves out of it. They overthink. They wait for certainty. And by the time they finally decide, the moment has already passed. And that's the hard truth. Opportunities don't wait for your comfort. Life moves. And if you're not willing to move with it, you'll watch someone else take the chance that was meant for you. This isn't about recklessness, it's about trust. Trusting that when life opens a door, it's not by accident. Trusting that the universe is aligning things in your favor, even if it doesn't feel convenient. So the next time something unexpected drops into your life, a job offer, a new connection, an idea that won't leave you alone, don't dismiss it. Stop and ask yourself, what if this is the thing I've been waiting for? What if this is my moment to step into the next version of myself? The Stoics remind us that fortune favors action, not perfection. You don't need to be fearless, you just need to move. Because in the end, the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is the choice you make next. 5. You feel a strange urge to do something new. David had a good life, or at least that's what it looked like on paper. Same job for 15 years. Steady paycheck. A comfortable apartment in a familiar neighborhood, the kind of life most people would call stable. But one morning, David woke up with this strange, nagging thought. I need to move to the mountains. It wasn't something he'd ever seriously considered. He wasn't an outdoorsman. He didn't ski or hike. Yet the idea clung to him. Showing up in small ways, an article about mountain towns, a random ad for cabins, A conversation with an old friend who had recently relocated. At first, he laughed it off. He had a job, friends, responsibilities. What business did he have daydreaming about starting over somewhere completely different? But here's the thing about these sudden urges: they don't show up without a reason. At first, they whisper, then they nudge, then they get loud enough that you can't ignore them. David didn't know it then, but his life was already outgrowing the space he'd built for it. That feeling of wanting something new wasn't random, it was a sign. I felt it too. Years ago, I became obsessed with learning carpentry. I had no workshop, no experience, and no real plan. But every time I passed a hardware store, it was like something inside me was tugging at my sleeve. Eventually, I gave in and bought a set of tools. And as I shaped wood, something else started to take shape: clarity. Those quiet hours sanding and building gave me the courage to leave a job that no longer fit, to create a life that finally did. This is exactly what Stoic philosophy encourages us to do. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Life is neither good nor evil, but only a place for good and evil." The Stoics believed we're part of a larger flow of life. Call it nature, call it the universe, and sometimes life gives us a signal that it's time to move with the current, not against it. When you ignore those quiet calls, life turns up the volume. What starts as restlessness becomes frustration. What was once curiosity turns into regret. If there's a pull inside you toward a new place, a new skill, a new way of being, don't dismiss it. It's your future calling you forward. The only question is, will you answer? 6. Obstacles are suddenly everywhere. A few years ago, I watched a close friend named Mark go through something that, at the time, looked like his entire life was falling apart. He had finally built up the courage to quit his job, one he'd stayed in far too long, and launched his own design business. He spent months preparing, savings in place, a few clients lined up, all his energy focused on making it work. But then, as soon as he took the leap, everything started to unravel. The client that promised him steady work suddenly backed out. His laptop crashed 2 days before a major presentation. Even his apartment flooded during a storm. I remember him saying, "It's like the universe is telling me I made a huge mistake." But here's what I've learned. What Stoic philosophy has helped me understand: it's not always what it seems. When life throws everything at you back to back, it's easy to believe you're being punished or blocked. Most people do. They fold. They think, this must be a sign to give up. But the Stoics had a different take. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that obstacles don't block the path, they're the path. In other words, the struggle is part of the process, not a detour from it. Mark didn't quit. He rebuilt his portfolio. He worked from borrowed computers. He took on small gigs that didn't look like much but kept him going. And 6 months later, one of those small projects led him to a contract that changed everything. Looking back, he told me those chaotic months shaped him into the kind of person who could handle the business he'd always wanted. Without the tests, he wouldn't have been ready. When everything feels like it's crumbling, it's tempting to think life is against you. But more often than not, it's life preparing you. The breakdown always comes before the breakthrough. If it didn't, if everything was handed to you without resistance, you wouldn't grow into the version of yourself who can handle what's on the other side. A stronger you is forged in challenge. So if things are falling apart, maybe they're actually falling into place. Your job isn't to figure it all out, your job is to keep going. 7. You start seeing the truth about people and situations. There comes a moment in life when everything you once thought was solid starts to feel hollow. You find yourself in conversations that used to feel effortless, but now they seem forced. as if everyone is reading from a script they don't believe in. You hear laughter that rings empty. You sense kindness that feels more like obligation than genuine care. It's subtle at first, almost easy to ignore, but over time, the feeling grows stronger, like a quiet voice inside you growing louder with every interaction. And then one day, you can't unsee it. You realize the relationships you've depended on for years aren't what they seemed. The support you thought you had was conditional. The trust you gave so freely wasn't returned. The clarity is sharp, and it cuts deep. This shift doesn't just happen with people. It happens with places, routines, even dreams. The job that once made you feel proud now drains your energy. The habits that used to bring comfort start feeling like chains. You begin to ask questions you've never dared to ask before. Why am I still here? Why am I holding on to this? Why have I accepted so little for so long? And the hardest part isn't finding the answers. It's knowing that the person you've become can no longer fit in the life you've outgrown. Stoic philosophy offers a hard but necessary truth. Clarity often comes wrapped in discomfort. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What feels like life falling apart is often life pushing you forward. It strips away the illusions and demands you confront what's real. And while that might feel like losing everything, it's actually the beginning of gaining something far greater, yourself. This awakening isn't gentle. It forces you to see things and people for what they truly are. That truth can be painful, but it's also liberating, because when you stop pretending, you can finally start choosing. Choosing where your energy goes. Choosing who has a place in your life. Choosing to live in alignment with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. And while the unknown can feel terrifying, it's in that space that something real begins to take shape. When you let go of what's no longer true, you make space for something that is. And that is where transformation begins. 8. You feel an unexplainable sense of peace amid the chaos. Not long ago, I spoke with someone who described a feeling I know many of us can relate to. Everything in her life seemed to be unraveling at the same time. A job she thought was secure was suddenly gone. A friendship she had counted on for years ended without warning. Even the hobbies that once brought her comfort now felt hollow. On the surface, it looked like everything was falling apart. And yet, beneath all of that chaos, she felt something strange, a quiet sense of peace. She couldn't explain it, but deep inside, there was a calm she had never experienced before. And I told her something that Stoic philosophy has taught me time and time again. Sometimes, when life is stripped bare, when everything familiar is removed, we finally have the space to hear what's true. The Stoics spoke often about acceptance. Not passive resignation, but the kind of acceptance that says, I may not control what's happening, but I control how I respond. When life seems to be tearing everything down, it's often clearing space for something that's waiting to take root. But most people don't see it that way. When uncertainty strikes, they panic. They rush to rebuild the old life they're losing, grasping for anything that feels safe, familiar, and in doing so, they miss the point entirely. They fail to see that the life they're scrambling to hold on to was the very thing holding them back. The peace you feel in the middle of chaos isn't an accident. It's your inner wisdom, the part of you the Stoics believed was connected to nature itself, reminding you that you are exactly where you need to be. Marcus Aurelius wrote that everything that happens is natural, even if it doesn't feel that way. The job loss, the ending friendship, the shift in what matters to you, all of it is part of a larger design. And while others are busy fighting to stay the same, you have a choice. You can trust the process. You can lean into the unknown with the quiet confidence that life is moving you forward. This isn't easy. Transformation never is. But the difference between those who break down and those who break through lies in how they choose to see the storm. If you're feeling this shift, if your life feels like it's coming undone, remember, you're not being dismantled. You're being rebuilt. The question is, will you let it happen? Because what's on the other side is bigger than anything you're leaving behind. So if you've been noticing these signs, whether it's a restless feeling you can't shake, old things falling apart, or sudden clarity about what no longer fits, take it as your personal wake-up call. This isn't random. It's not just one of those phases. It's life. Your life. Getting ready to shift in a way you might not fully understand yet. But trust me, it's happening for you. Not to you. The Stoics would say, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. So why not walk forward with a little courage, maybe even a little swagger, and say, I'm ready. And hey, you're not doing this alone. We're walking this road together. So if this video stirred something inside you, let me know in the comments. What signs have you noticed? Which one hit home? I read every single one. And if you're ready to keep growing, to keep stepping into the life that's waiting for you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community. This is just the beginning. Your next chapter is already waiting. You just have to take the first step.